Well, I think we covered that that everybody can hear me because I was already talking to you guys online, and I can hear that I can hear me in the room. I see some new faces. Who's new? Raise your hand, and let's see. We'll go around this way. Yes, sir. Name, call sign, and location. KM6LBU Robert from Pacific Beach. Fantastic. I go to Pacific Beach United Methodist Church, so I'm down there every Sunday, even though I live up here. And Pacific Beach United Methodist Church has a call sign, K6BEC. We're working on a station down there, and we host technician, general, and extra classes from time to time with San Diego Ham classes. So there is, what's your technician, or what's your level? General? Okay, we have a general class coming up in actually days from now. So, yes, sir. Welcome. So not hams yet? Okay, Paul and Kathy Vista, well, welcome and glad to have you here. Other new, yes, sir. Not new.
Perry Pierce.
Oh, one second. We're going around the room here real quick, Gary. Well, welcome back. So 2 years ago, we were in the other room in this building, right? Oh, the safety center. Yeah. Yeah. That was more than 2 years ago. Those were the days. All right. Anyone else in the room? Okay. Perry, yes.
Yes. Expired novice license. I'm studying for my technician.
Great. Others that want to introduce themselves? Yes, Mark.
I'm Mark, KO6CDB. I'm an extra and a V with the ARRLVEC.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here, Mark. And thanks for being here this Mark too. Anyone else care to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Nikki. November.
Hi. Sure. Hi,
November.
Nikki.
Hi. I'm sorry I couldn't make it today. I'm sick and I didn't want to get anyone else sick.
No problem.
Area, November 6th, India, Kilo, India. I can't change my name because it's my work account.
Ah, okay. Well, if you do change it, like if you can change it, it only changes for this meeting. It doesn't change it perpetually if you go into the setting just for this meeting. But anyways, that's okay. We've got that recorded and we got your name up there. So fantastic. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Liana, November 6th Whiskey Hotel, in Fresno based, but originally from Anaheim. So hello, excited to hear the talk tonight. Thanks for letting me join.
Fantastic. Yeah, always welcome. All right, great. Okay, let's see. Have an announcement here. Well, actually, let's go through the reports. Membership. Glenn, where'd you go? There you are. So this is Glenn, AI6RR, our membership chair, one of them.
Yeah, one of them. Okay. So I want to say, first of all, I did a bunch of data entry today, and that we have 150 current paid members. And we have 4 new members that joined during the month of March. First one is Aaron, K, October 6, Delta Echo Bravo. And Steve, Kilo 6, Echo Mike Romeo. Victor, he's a complimentary one. The club still honors the technicians getting their license if they say something to the testing person. If they're a park member, we give them a free complimentary year's membership in the club. So Victor is one of those people. Kilo October 6, Delta Yankee Zulu. And the last one is Mark, who introduced himself there. I thought when I saw his call sign there, he looked familiar because I put him in the database today. So that's Mark, Kilo October 6, Charlie Delta Bravo, and he's an extra. And the first one, Aaron, is a general, and the other 2 are technicians. Yes. Oh, sure. I'll say that. So we had a problem with one of our repeaters a while back. And it was basically that 5 or 6 minutes into the Aries net, the repeater went quiet. And I don't know what happened the week after that, but nobody told us that we had a problem. Then the next week it went on, and I think that was the week that Mark and I monitored, and it worked right up until the end of the just before the preamble. Worked through the preamble, and then it quit working. But about 10 minutes after the net was done, they had transferred to another repeater. Our repeater that they've been using came back online. The fourth weekend, they did their net, and I believe it died. The same thing right after the preamble, and it died until we were up there 3 days later finally and replaced it with a substitute. And the net control for that next following Sunday raved about the park club and the fact that we support these repeaters and do a pretty good job in her recollection, in her mind. And gee, it'd be nice if people want to support it. And one person suggested that, well, you could go join the club. That'd be great. Or you could just make a donation. Or if you're already a member, just buy another year or two of membership. And I think that day we got 4 new members, and we got about 6 people that bought extra years on their membership. So if we have a crisis, sometimes it pays off. You'll see that in the entertainment industry a lot. Thank you.
And I'll have Mark, our repeater site and tech chair, head up here. And while he's doing that, you can also gift memberships to another ham. So if you have a ham friend, someone who's just gotten their license or just gotten an upgrade or just moved to the area, you can give them a membership.
All right, well, I'll give you a slightly more colorful version of what Glenn said. 14673 has been up there. John, how long has 14673 been up there?
I'm a big believer in
And the problem is that, pardon me? Oh, he said it. And the problem is that it's been so stable and functioning, although it's been like 3 different repeaters, but we don't mention that. But it's been functional for so long that it's like, you know, the telephone used to be, or you know, it's just something that's always there. You always have water to your house, and those repeaters are always there. And it never dawned on any of these people, who the vast majority of them didn't even have their license. Some of them weren't even born when this repeater went online. So all of a sudden it goes off, and their preamble didn't have anything in it about, if the repeater fails, go do this. So they asked me, and I wrote into their preamble, if it fails, go to 146 or 147130. If, you know, and then, so we have, you know, failbacks on if this thing dies. And that's when the discussion started. Well, why does this repeat? Why is it up there, and why does it always work? Well, it's because a small group of us, some in this room, aren't bright enough to not go up there when it's snowing and everything else and fix all this stuff. And then the rumor got around that the club pays for this out of the dues. No, the rumor in Aries, in their meeting, or I should say, actually it was on their net. And then one guy started with the, okay, since Park pays for all this, I challenge all of you to join their club today during the meeting. And all of a sudden Glenn's watching, you know, just person sign up, and another person signs up. People that are already members are adding years and donating money and just whatever. It's like, wow, man, we should have these repeaters fail a little more often. And as far as the repeater going down, it's still not fully diagnosed, but it's a strange failure. It's a digital repeater with a digital control system. It's got a bunch of microprocessors and FPGAs controlling everything. And odd as it may seem, after it's been on, the controller just tells the repeater to stop transmitting and flashes a little light that says, you've got a signal, but I'm not going to turn the transmitter on. And so I'm actually looking through the code in the FPGA to figure out why it is the way it is. So if anybody is really good at macro languages, let me know after the meeting. As far as the rest of the facility, we're adding another area. It's a Meshtastic 915 megahertz mesh network. So we got the antenna up, we got the heliax, and if anybody wants to know the difference between coax and heliax, I have a little piece of heliax, although I left it in the car. Basically, it's half the loss of coax for the roughly the same diameter. And this thing that we're running has got 100 feet at 915 megahertz, so we're going to lose about 2 dB. But if we were to run real good quality coax, we'd lose 4 dB. So, you know, you take what you can get. Anyway, if anybody's curious, I'll bring it in at the end of the meeting. So we got that all set up. We've got a temporary repeater in place on 14673, and the modernization project is continuing to make progress towards getting a permit so that we can put up the additional tower. And I think that we're in the final version of the code that controls the Flex 6400 HF station that's going to go up there. You'll be able to operate it remotely through your web browser. Is that enough?
Yeah. Any questions for Mark? Okay. Oh. And there goes our camera. Yep. Thank you. Sorry. Technical difficulties. One moment, please. I knew I should have taped all that down. Don't tell OSHA. It's all right. Oh. And of course, that went to a default location. So let's aim this up. There we go. Nope, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Okay. So the good cable, there's a few things left back there that Glenn brought in. There's a lighter adapter and some test equipment. So that's all free if you want to throw that. John, wave your hand, John, WB6IQS has several gas generators that he wants to sell. He says that he's been leaving them out on his property for too long and they've been multiplying. So please help him. $200 to $300, varying on the generator. They're easy start, pull end. Is that what that says? Rope pull. Okay. Yes, they're all rope pull. Okay. Got them all in top condition. So talk to John if you're interested in a generator. Okay. And yes, the ears auction was the other thing I wanted to talk about. Does anyone have a date for that on top of their brain? So I don't have to go look at the. Well, someone looks at the scope, I'll continue. Is Mark, who you just heard from, KF6WTN is your repeater site and technical chair. Keith, KM6CXW is your scope editor, who I believe is traveling right now. So he has created some upcoming scopes, and I will be hitting the go button on them when the time is right. Jim W6XM is one of your directors. John AJ6FQ is your other director. And your membership chair is kind of shared between AI6RR and 6WNN, who is also your webmaster. Your treasurer is Jim K2VO. Don't see him. Vice President Chris KD9LF. Secretary Jim W6TQS. And I am your president, Joe K6JPE. Yes. April 20th, auction begins at 10. You can start setting up at 9. It's the ears auction. Where is it? East 4th Avenue, Escondido. I think it's probably at the church, is it? Some kind of business. Okay. Amateur Radio Society ears, look at their website. I'm sure they have all of the details there, or it's in the latest scope. I will invite Chris, KD9LF, up to talk about our presentation. And then we'll get the ball rolling. Watch your step. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. We'll have Kevin make one youth announcement real quick, and then I'll hand it over to Chris. Watch your step.
All right. Is anybody in the audience, was anyone here ever young?
No.
I have K6JP back there. No, AP, right? Oh, that's K6BH right there. Yes. Okay, you're forever 16. No, you're 14 and foolish. That's your permanent age. All right, back to the youth-oriented activities that I am up to, we are up to. This upcoming weekend at Camp Balboa at the Radio Shack, there's a work party that's going to start about 10:30, run until about 2 o'clock. That's immediately next to the San Diego Zoo. If you're around and you want to stop by and see what we're up to, please do. We have the antenna mount up for the Stepper IR. In the event any of you want to join the team to implement the Stepper Urban Beam, you're welcome. Then that's this weekend. The Aries meeting, you heard a little bit about Aries. Aries has their in-person meeting. The agenda will be talking about privacy concerns when you are communicating information. This is in prep for the drill that Aries will be having with Tier 1 hospitals at the end of the month. The next weekend is a Scout Fair at the Mission Vista High School in Oceanside. I made this announcement at the last meeting when the Oceanside CERT people were here. If any of you can help out in the afternoon, like if you want to show up to get scouts on the air in the afternoon of the 13th, that's one of the requirements for the radio merit badge, I'd appreciate it. You can contact me at ak6z@arrl.net. Hey, Nikki, you're online. If you want to join us, that would be super. We would especially welcome young women. And if you show up, Nikki, you too will be permanently 14. Now, then the last Saturday of every month is the operating day at Camp Balboa. So if you want to come down and see what we're up to, we typically have scouts that show up. They are amazed and mystified by the Flex 6400 with no knobs and buttons. You can only operate the radio with a computer. So they love seeing the waveforms on the screen. They love seeing activity and listening in. And then when we did Winter Field Day, they loved hunting and pouncing, where the kids would see the waveforms, see activity, and then pounce on it and break in and be part of that conversation. So I'll stop there and I'll repeat the next set of activities for May next month at this meeting. Stay 14, stay foolish. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Watermen. He's going to be talking to you about the Department of Homeland Security high frequency program. And Steve, you'll forgive me for reading the part about the FEMA work that you do, but it's a lot of acronyms. He's a member of FEMA's Regional Emergency Coordinator Communications Coordination Working Group for FEMA Regions 4, 5, and 10. He serves as the chair of the FEMA Region 4 AuxComm subcommittee, and he also serves as the emergency services coordinator of Winlink for the Tennessee Emergency Organization. First licensed in 1955. Of note that for this group that he is the co-founder of the Winlink Global Radio Email System, and he is the immediate president of the Amateur Radio Safety Foundation, Incorporated, which runs and supports the Winlink organization. He's currently a member of the board of the directors and a member of the Winlink development team. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, here, let me see if I can share a screen. Hopefully this will. Can you see an RV in the redwood forest there?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, but can you go
Yes.
into presentation mode?
All right. Thank you. Good evening. It's 10 o'clock here in Central Daylight Time. And regardless, I'm glad to be here. I would like to talk about the CISA SHARES Interoperable Emergency Communication System. And it's composed of both voice and data options, but I will get into that as soon as I can figure out how to get rid of the just one second. I can't see what I'm doing here. I'll figure it out. There we go. Okay. Now I can see. I'm sorry. The shares. There. The shares resource, or the shared resource, is a high frequency program, radio program, that provides an alternate communication pathway for its member agencies with a security and emergency preparedness mission. CISA SHARES' purpose is to support interoperable emergency communication by radio, both HF and VHF, satellite, whatever, RF, for security and emergency preparedness through continuity of government, which is essentially a coordinated effort within each of the branches of our government at all levels to ensure that governance and essential functions continue to be performed before, during, and after an emergency. The mission of SHARES, thankfully, is to satisfy the mission of its agency members. So the SHARES mission supports the mission of those that belong to the and participate in the program. That would be civil authorities at all levels of government, non-government organization, and critical infrastructure. SHARES was perceived and conceived in the Bush administration under an executive order, a presidential executive order, and revised again by Barack Obama to incorporate the National Response Framework, the National Incident Management System, and other more modern aspects of emergency communication. In response, the Department of Homeland Security established a shared resources high-frequency radio program to provide additional means, more resilient means for users with a security and emergency preparedness mission to communicate when normal communication infrastructure is belly up. So
Sorry,
today,
we had a question from the room here to explain what CISA stands for.
for the cyber, the Department of Homeland Security consists of many agencies. Federal Emergency Management Agency, TSA, CISA is a cybersecurity infrastructure security agency, and it's huge. There are a myriad of agencies within it. The one that you may be more familiar with than others is the Emergency Communication Division, which spawned the AuxComm function or task, and provides many of the communication related and emergency communication related FEMA online and classroom courses. That's a very minute part of CISA, but it's one that we would all probably be most familiar with. So the U.S. Coast Guard is a part of the Department of Homeland Security. There are a myriad of organizations on the federal level that are driven by the Department of Homeland Security and the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. When they flipped the coin with this executive order, they ended up with it. So today there are agencies at all levels of government that and critical infrastructure partners like Red Cross and AT&T, et cetera, that use the SHARES resource in their planning. This includes agency volunteer resources, mostly amateur radio operators, and that is what I would like to emphasize in this presentation, because a lot of emergency managers have no idea how to operate an HF radio, and those that do would rather be doing their normal job function and leave this to people who can't do the things that they have to do otherwise. So the shared resources, there's approximately 2,700 participants. There are probably 3,000 stations or more. The SHARES Winlink Global Radio Email Network has approximately 117 radio message servers on approximately 100 and a little over 100 channels throughout the HF and VHF radio spectrum. With this program, with the SHARES program, and especially with Winlink, there is interoperability is key. So if I'm an amateur radio operator and I want to email a government agency, I can do that over amateur radio by putting in the government agency call sign at winlink.org. It then goes over the internet, the SMTP mail system, and whoever gets it, whether it's a commercial radio station or President of the United States, it's email. So interoperability is key with the SHARES system. There are federal, state, county, National Guard, tribal, critical infrastructure partners, such as Federal Express, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Walmart. All the supply chain and assistance comes through the Emergency Management Alliance complex as well. So interoperability and resiliency are key to the SHARES process, especially involving SHARES Winlink. I just heard somebody talking about privacy. It is against the law. It's against Part 97.113 for you to obstruct the content of data on the amateur radio bands. That's not true on the SHARES system, but we'll get into that in a little bit. There are multiple services provided by SHARES. SHARES Winlink Hybrid Radio Email Network is one. I'm going to talk more about that than the others. And the reason why I'm going to talk about that is because your state government is using it for an interoperable solution to a myriad of proprietary voices that otherwise would not be able to communicate with each other and the rest of the world. Your state is not unique. The federal government, state governments, counties, parishes, and private industry are all utilizing that network for that purpose. Ham radio also uses Winlink, and I would hope that some of you are a little bit familiar with that. The National ALE automatic link establishment and non-ALE voice networks are also pertinent to shares. Again, your government and its counties are all involved with training currently to learn how to communicate with each other should their normal local communication infrastructure go down for the count. They have in the past, and if the world continues, they probably will in the future in real life situations, not just exercises. A regional shares sponsorship of non-ALE networks is also available through the shares program through that continuity of government. Shares approved state response ALE and non-ALE voice networks are taking over the voice single sideband high frequencies offered by shares. The state of Florida, state of Idaho, and other state net are utilizing that for their intrastate and interstate communication. High and low frequency alerting system is also another part of shares, which provide real-time over-the-air emergency readiness notices. So the emphasis of this presentation is going to be largely about Winlink, because Winlink is by far the biggest part of shares currently. These are the type of people in Title 10 or military that utilize shares. And the ones that are in bold are really the ones that use amateur radio volunteers on a continual basis. These are not our domestic authorities. These are our military. And also, you can put the National Guard in both categories. If the National Guard is not federalized and goes up underneath the governor of a state, it is non-military, it's a militia. It's under what's called Title 32, and it's there to support and defend civil authorities. If the National Guard is federalized, it's military, it's under Title 10, and they go to war. In addition, shares participants also include FEMA in many different aspects. It also includes TSA. TSA has over 103 locations on the shares network. The United States Geological Survey is involved with shares and amateur radio. They use volunteers for their Did You Feel It annual exercise. We've got a myriad of county and state agencies. I think there are 438 counties involved with shares in the United States alone, counties and parishes. The state and National Guard, as I mentioned, under Title 32. We have many critical infrastructure partners such as Red Cross, American Radio Relay League, Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, hospitals, retail establishments that are critical infrastructure partners, many. Telecommunication companies, power companies such as CALOES, many who use the shares system. And the ones that are in bold, again, they're looking for amateur radio operators that are qualified and can do jobs for them. Okay, so why CISA shares? If you look at a catastrophic incident or any kind of communication outage, doesn't have to be catastrophic, but they like to include earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, floods, ice storms, wildfires, etc. Things that you guys are familiar with in a lifetime. Geomagnetic disturbances, electromagnetic pulse EMP attacks, or natural EMP incidents, cyber attacks, anything that disturbs normal email distribution, especially. So you could have all your public safety and land mobile radio up and running, but you can't put an inoculation inventory over it. You can't put a prescription inventory over it. You can't put detailed HIPAA information over it. So digital communication is paramount in an emergency. just like it is in normal life. Think about how many times you have real-time conversations as opposed to email, texting, and voicemail, and that'll give you some idea. The commonality of all of this is you get little or no notice when something like this happens. You get extensive damage to critical infrastructure, especially normal email. You get significant impacts on response and recovery. It takes a while for things to get back to normal. We all know that. Okay, so how do you coordinate grid restoration without communication? How do you get things back to normal? How do you get your landlines, your voice over IP, your cell phones, satellite phones, land mobile radio networks for public safety, hospitals, ambulance, EMS, fire, all dependent on vulnerable infrastructure, which depends on power, water, and fuel and people. So when you run out of all of that, what do you do? By the way, I put this in here. This is a farmer in 2021 who ran over a fiber cable and blew out region 5 and part of region 9. Region 5 is up there in Michigan, Wisconsin, all the way down to Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. And it wasn't known for quite a while because it was not a mass casualty event. It was barely noticed. And all of the same is true with the Nashville bombing. It blew out everything everywhere. So these events that occurred don't have to be mass casualty events. And this is where amateur radio can really come into play. I'll get into that. By providing situational awareness, ground truth information to a jurisdiction when it needs it. We'll get into that. So let's look at what we're talking about here. Worst case scenario, your landline, cell phones, no dial tone, no last mile, site damage, destroyed, no power, no sat phones. They're overloaded, congested, frozen, no access, internet, no last mile, no backbone, damaged, destroyed, overload, no email, hacked, cyber attacked, public safety, land mobile radio, damaged, twisted around towers, burned up towers, not any way to get information fuel to a tower generator to keep a cell running because of wildfires, because of earthquake, because of mudslides, whatever. Cells on wheels, SALs, public safety, portable vehicles, everything is dependent on our infrastructure. Amateur radio resources. Hey, how many of you are associated and really have a place in your local EMA? Not ARES, in your local EMA. Possibly limited due to competing fragmented volunteer resources, disassociated with the authority having jurisdiction, Part 97 restrictions really getting away, licensing requirements. If you're not a ham or you're getting paid, you have issues with amateur radio. For some agencies, it's just not in their current plan. They've had a bad taste in their mouth because of the guy that said, I'm a communicator for 40 years and nobody's going to tell me how to operate. So there's all kinds of issues that take place there. All kinds. So let's look at a typical agency's PACE plan. That is their primary, alternate, contingency, emergency communication plan. That's the new buzzword for an authority having jurisdiction looking at their ESF2 or their communication function. Their primary everyday method of communicating when everything's normal and going smoothly, all the money's been spent, appropriated by the legislature. You got a 24 or $48 million public safety system. Everything's working perfectly, and bang, now it's not. So now you move into your cell on wheels, your portable land mobile radio systems, satellite. They take fuel economy, they take people. Then they're stretched too thin. You can't get resources from other places because they've got their own problems. It takes a while for another state to work out the emergency management a compact alliance, a contract between, let's say, the state of California and Arizona has to be signed and agreed to be paid for by California. Then the California has to go get the money from the federal government. So all of this takes place. What happens in the meantime? So now you have reserve options, and those fallback methods are something that people don't plan for because they don't take a lot of money. So there's not a lot of pressure to do them. And that's when the ham comes in. That's when the volunteer resources are necessary. So for minimal cost, rarely used, often forgotten until needed resources like your repeater system, etc., it all is there, but it needs to be integrated into the PACE plan of your local or nearby authorities having jurisdiction, your hospitals, your sheriff's offices, etc. So that's where the Department of Homeland Security's SHARES Winlink radio email system shines. So if you look at this tower, it's obvious in Kentucky why the state has no communication, why there's no cell service, why there's no satellite service. That tower could be burned or it could be frozen. This was an actual situation that took place where Winlink took a picture and sent it back to Frankfort, Kentucky, and Nashville, Tennessee, to the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency and the Commonwealth of Kentucky's National Guard to illustrate why the entire western half of their state was silent. And this is now obviously a part of their PACE plan. Like your own state, this state now has a Winlink radio message server that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in its state EMA and other places, so that this won't happen to them again with no communication whatsoever. This was taken when the Commonwealth of Kentucky asked the state of Tennessee to do a reconnaissance up into Western Kentucky because they couldn't get in. So what are the lessons learned? There's some lessons learned here. To sustain an essential function, regardless of how rare that capability may be used, it needs to be in place. Alternate communication methods are essential. Access to and this isn't hams talking to hams. This is hams volunteering at the pleasure of the agency they're serving. So they have to have access to resilient communication system at primary and their alternate locations, or they don't have anything. They have to have infrastructure related. If they have infrastructure related outages for a significant period, this becomes a real problem. So how do you deal with this? It's a trained volunteer. Is the agency willing to manage the volunteers? You've got ARES, you've got RACES, you've got the CRU, you've got ACS. They're all competing with each other. The SMART agency picks its own, like CALOES, for example, they have the CRU. They have their own reserve program that they manage, and they can cherry pick out of all the rest of these organizations and get the best for themselves. Do they require that you have National Incident Management System training? What certifications do you have to have? What health do you have to have? Do you receive any benefits for your service? Probably not, but you're doing it because you want to, not because you're getting paid. So some of these agencies that are smarter give you uniform, access, recognition, and some don't. Shares has no service fees. It has no usage fees. There's no licenses. You get call signs if you're qualified as an agency. You don't have a license. You don't need a license. Just like the cop on the street doesn't need a license to operate his radio. Its strong recommendation is to use NIMS, qualified volunteer resources, already familiar with the agency system. How do you get familiar with the agency system? You take their 101 course, the course that people take when they enter there as an employee. Does that take time off the part of the management of that agency? Yes. Is it worth it? Some of them think it is. So you allow the agency personnel more time to do the things that the volunteers can't do. That's the sell point, other than having good qualified people who can help put fuel in a tower generator and keep the cache radio batteries up and running. The cost of the Winlink network backbone for all Winlink services, software, and operation is provided by volunteer user registration fees. You don't have to register. It doesn't affect the functionality at all. And we receive donations, thankfully. The user cost for everything needed to operate a Winlink station is less cost than one Motorola P25 handheld. So when your agency says, well, we just don't have the money, you can remind them of that. The CISA shares communication options. We went over that. Mainly, they're used for the Central United States Earthquake Consortium. The East Coast earthquake issue is the New Madrid Fault. And there is an 11-state consortium that deals with that possibility of another New Madrid Fault quake, the one that reversed the course of the Mississippi River and caused a lake to be formed. It was a devastating event, and the states along the Mississippi River take it seriously. They have a subcommittee that deals with communication, and SHARES is a part of that subcommittee. They have a weekly net that these states and their counties and National Guards and FEMA check into. There's an HF alerting system. Then there's a CISA SHARES Winlink hybrid radio email network. There are approximately 110 continuously scanning radio message servers that cover the entire spectrum. It'll operate with or without the internet. It's used whenever internet email is not readily available. It's used to bridge to the email system over radio. And it's used to obtain situational awareness ground truth. When there's no other way to get ground truth in a jurisdiction, it's awfully good to be able to have an amateur radio community that you've prearranged a situational awareness convention with, so that if and when you need information, you've got a prearranged group of people that know how to provide it to you. So there's the FEMA. FEMA provides an alert, and the emergency management agency gets the alert, and they try to find a way to provide that to the public, but the radio stations are down for the count. There's no internet. How do they get that to the public? So prearranging volunteer resources to be at, for example, churches or schools where shelters are in place is a smart thing to do. There's no SCC Part 90 type accepted for using SCC commercial equipment because there's no FCC. There's no Part 97 restrictions like we have in amateur radio because there's no FCC. It's perfect for volunteer resources, working with agencies, and it's a proven system. Just thought I'd put this in here. These are some drop kits. This is the Tennessee National Guard, the first one. TSA is the second one. That was the TSA. This guy was doing a demonstration for Congress on the lawn. Then there's the Idaho National Labs that provided a drop kit for shares. If you look at those radios, you will see that only the one on the extreme right is a commercial radio. The rest of them are all amateur radio. I think the one over there in the Tennessee National Guard, it's a TS-480. There's an EMCOM there that's being used by the TSA. Idaho National Labs is using, looks like a 7600 EMCOM. Only the Barrett radio over there on the right is the only commercial radio that's being used, and that's at the headquarters of the American Red Cross in Fairfax, Virginia. They're on Shares Winlink as well. So VHF radio stations, transceivers, antenna power, housing, you guys all know this. It only takes a 12-volt battery, hopefully lithium iron phosphate, but if not, a car battery, UPS generator, solar. You don't need any infrastructure between the originator and the recipient. You've got Mother Nature. You can cover nearby areas to thousands of miles, depending upon the specific requirement necessary to find internet email. It's an inexpensive option. Even with public safety in full operation, with no emergency email, they may be having a serious problem, especially hospitals, medical. So why not amateur radio? I mean, you guys have a spectrum. Why wouldn't you want to use that for emergency communication? If you look at Part 97, the FCC Wireless Telecommunications Bureau 3 years ago made this statement. While the value of amateur radio service to the public as a volunteer, non-commercial communication service, particularly with respect to providing emergency communication, is one of the underlying principles of amateur service, that's Part 97.1 verbatim, but they added the amateur service is not an emergency radio service. For hams interested in EMCOM, CISA Shares can optimize their value through belonging to a Shares member agency. If a Shares member agency is willing to provide proper management, oversee proper training, and provide proper incentive, volunteer resources can have a great value. That's one of the reasons why they're allowed. So let me go specifically so that you don't think I'm just talking out of school. For EMCOM trained amateur radio volunteers, what can Shares provide in addition to that provided on the ham spectrum? It's okay to obscure data. All the message servers that I'm talking about use AES 256 encryption. That's not allowed via Part 97.113A4. You cannot obscure the content of data. That's a big no-no. You're not channelized. We have no channelization. If you're there, the frequency belongs to you until you're finished. Not with CISA Shares. Winlink has over 103 exclusive as RF can get, channelized frequencies provided at all levels of usable spectrum, from 2 to 27 megahertz, and in the VHS spectrum right above 2 meters, the 2-meter ham band, above and below. Agencies allowed to operate radios. There's no license needed. You don't have to sit around and wait for a ham who may or may not be able to get there. There's no pecuniary interest rule. So if you're getting paid big bucks to operate and 70 hours have occurred, you don't have to stop. It's not even in the cards. You have exclusive use of HF, VHF, NTIA channelization. There's no channelization on amateur radio. You have a huge spectrum. There are no gaps. There's 2 megahertz, 3 megahertz, 4 megahertz, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way up to 27 megahertz. There's no gaps in propagation. And the way propagation is today, those message servers that scan 5 frequencies or 6 frequencies each, today, 2 years ago, you'd be happy to get 1 channel out of the 5 that they scan. Today, most of the time, 4 out of the 5 channels are usually perfect propagation. This is my 6th cycle, and this is a good one. 6th 11-year sunspot cycle. So direct interoperability with other communications resources is really key. If you're a ham and you're not using Winlink, you can't just get on and operate public safety or vice versa. So this is one of the advantages of the shares resource. It can operate on any frequency in the NIFOG and the National Information Frequency Operation Guide. Not permitted on amateur radio. So with Winlink, shares users on federal NTIA channels may email anyone. So if I'm on shares and I email you on amateur radio, I have to be aware of your rules, that they're very restricted. So I have to be careful what I can email to amateur radio operators. Likewise, amateur radio operators have to be very careful what they put on the share system, because it doesn't bother the share system, but to get it over amateur radio to the share system, you have to abide by Part 97 rules. So what if the internet is attacked and unavailable everywhere? Shares can operate in a radio-only mode as a large mesh without the use of the internet. And I don't want to get into all of that today, but let's just say it can. It has 2 intertwined, interoperable solutions that are involved. And actually, there's 3. For example, if you have a message you send to an RMS, a radio message server, and that radio message server leaves a message up to you that the internet is temporarily out at that location, you can leave it there, or you can hang up and go to another radio message server that does have internet. But if you do leave it there, that radio message server on shares will go out and find automatically another radio message server that does have internet outside of that disaster zone. So it's a very robust system. Shares Winlink has propagation flexibility. As I said, it uses the entire usable spectrum. And it's coordinated. It's not just ham 1 and ham 2. It's completely coordinated and controlled. Attributes of the CISA SHARES system: it's managed by civil authorities at all levels of government and their non-government organization critical infrastructure partners. It's a true emergency service set up because other services have restrictions, and the government wanted this to be open, wide open, in case it's absolutely necessary. No permission needed for an emergency. It's just wide open. Agencies encouraged to use volunteers when available, because hams know what they're doing if they're trained properly, especially when it comes to operating a radio, especially when it comes to operating a radio that they're used to operating, that's an amateur radio. No license required, as I said earlier. You just have to sign a non-disclosure as an agency, and you're responsible for the volunteers that you manage. Security is no issue. There's no restriction. You can obscure the data. You can password protect a zip file. You can encrypt. Transmissions are protected on both VERA and Pactor 4 with AES 256. which is the government standard, gold standard. Network is coordinated and managed and monitored nationwide. And I've gone over the rest of this. I don't want to waste your time again. This is a picture of the worldwide connectivity in the Winlink network for 24 hours a day, in a day. This is a 24-hour look. And it was not where conditions are today. I think this is about a year old. This is the radio message servers that are up 24/7. On the left, I've got Vera. On the right, I have Pactor. Vera is just become available because we weren't going to put that life and property in the hands of one individual in Spain until we had an escrow agreement with that individual, a legal agreement that if he decided he wanted to sell it or go elsewhere, that we could maintain that product until hell freezes over, so that there's no danger of somebody with a drop kit out in the field with a real life incident and all of a sudden the product's not available. So Vera is new and it's very robust. It's an excellent protocol. It costs $69 for the original version. It's encrypted on shares and you can use it on amateur radio. So this is just a look at the radio message servers, these green dots. Now, what are these green dots? This is one of the green dots. It's the Williamson County, Tennessee radio message server on shares. The blue dots are, I think, 21 days of usage. These are the people that have checked in to that server, individual stations, agencies, client stations with Winlink Express in 21 days. And you can see they're not all clustered around one particular area because they're dependent upon propagation. In digital communication, a strong signal that's nearby is not an asset because you have a strong ground wave and a strong sky wave. And for all the old geezers like me, you remember when you had black and white TV and rabbit ears, you had multiple images. And that was because you had one timing coming in from the tuner and another timing coming in from the AC line. And they were two different time constants, and they created double images, mini images. Well, the same thing happens with digital communication. So being near isn't being best. So how do you succeed with EMCOM? If you're a ham operator and a volunteer, it's imperative that you have a relationship between you and your agency, the volunteer resource, whether it's the Red Cross, and I'm not talking about the ARL, I'm talking about people who have real life emergency situations that they have to deal with in a jurisdiction. And I would never choose one of any 2 or 3 organizations. Okay, I've just been told to speed up, so I'm going to speed up. The message here is to become involved in this process and really get involved with emergency communication. It's imperative that you get involved with your local communication infrastructure agencies. It says auxiliary communication. That's a new position in the Incident Command System organization chart. Brand new position. It doesn't say ARL, it doesn't say RACES. It's not an organization. AuxComm is a task or a function, like all the rest of these. And that's it. So CISA Shares Winlink, HF radio tuner and antenna, about $1,600. Pactor for modem, about $200. Vera, $69. The ability to send email, when commercial communication systems fail is priceless. Thank you for your time. If I stop sharing,
Yep, you did.
okay.
All right. Are there any questions in the room that I can relay on? Yes, sir.
Is there any training in how to get the welding set up on your own system at home?
The question is there any training on how to get the Winlink set up on your own system at home?
Oh, yes. In California, out of Ventura County and LA County are 4 gentlemen who, and I think one of them is in Placer County, who are excellent, called Wave Talkers. And every Sunday, 3 o'clock my time, it'd be 1 o'clock your time, a man named Chris Mattia hosts something called Wave Talkers. And Wave Talkers it's on YouTube. You can look it up. It's got excellent instruction. There is a website, the Winlink website, winlink.org. And if you go to the support page, you can join the Winlink Programs Group Reflector. There are 4,500 people there who are willing to assist you, and there are mentors specifically out of California.
That answer your question?
There's also the Rat Pack, which you can get an agency perspective by going to the Rat Pack and looking at different statewide interoperability coordinators and communication managers talk about how they want to utilize volunteer resources. It's on YouTube as well. Does that help?
Yep. Yeah, that helps. That answer your question? Okay, great. There was a question in the channel, why 27 megahertz versus 28?
Why 27? Because
I'm not sure. This was probably a while ago.
Oh, I don't know. Look, their frequencies all the way from 2 all the way up to 27, 8 or 9 or whatever. They're concerned with propagation, not with other services.
Okay. Sorry? Wave Talkers and who else?
Rat Pack,
Rat Pack. Yeah.
RATPAC. Specifically Winlink related and excellent.
All right. Yes. What is your recommendation for ensuring our radio equipment survives an EMP?
Put it in an EMP bag that you get on Amazon. The National Guard in Virginia has 9 locations in EMP bags and 4 radio message servers in the state of Virginia, Florida, similar, Tennessee, similar. They're not expensive. Use a garbage can. And you can get a filter. You can get an antenna filter that'll help a lot. A gas filter.
So possibly 2 sets of equipment, keep one in a Faraday cage basically, or an EMT bag, and the one you're using keep out in case something happens when you're using it.
If you can afford it.
Yeah. We're hams. That's all we do, right?
Right.
Spend our money.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people that they have no job. They're looking for a job. And while they're waiting for their interview, they're playing with their 6700 Flex and Hillcraft amplifiers.
Yeah. Other questions in the room? Yes. Comment from Kevin? Go ahead.
Yeah, so for folks that want to do Winlink on their own machine, Winlink client into DDS, Mike Bradbury gave a presentation at the year's meeting a little while back.
N2 DDS gave a presentation at the EARS meeting about Winlink. And do you know if that meeting is recorded on the EARS website? Okay, so look up
who
ears, N2DDS, November 2 Delta Delta Sierra.
I have no idea.
And look at the Escondido Amateur Radio Society, ERS, here in California.
I'd say that honestly, Wave Talkers is as good as I've ever heard.
Okay.
The guy that's in charge of that is an obviously professional.
Questions from the group online? You can go ahead and unmute, or I guess put it in the chat and I'll take a look and see if I see anything. I see the Rat Pack website is in the chat. Well, I'm not seeing anybody unmuting and I'm not seeing anything else in chat. So I think that, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's me. How do you join?
How do you do what? Oh,
How do
join
your organization, yes.
Join Palomar?
Yes.
So palomararc.org, and there's a join or membership button up there. Just click on that, fill it out. You can pay your dues with PayPal. Takes you right to the form. You can even set up automatic annual dues renewal.
Okay. And are there classes that are given to help pass the technician test?
There are in San Diego County. If you Google San Diego ham classes, I think that's .org. Yeah, it is. Okay. Jay Goldberg is the guy who puts it on, and I think it's about once a quarter there's a technician class, and then once or twice a year there's general and or extra, and those move around to different areas of the county. So right now the general is in Pacific Beach area, like I mentioned earlier, this coming Saturday. Last month it was also in PB for the technician class, and that's a cram class where you spend 6 hours of your Saturday doing, just going through every single question and answer, and then immediately after you take the test.
I see something here where somebody asks, is Pector-4 a proprietary waveform? They have several waveforms. They're all proprietary. The one that's been used in amateur radio is called orthogonal frequency division multiplex, and it is an ARQ mixed with FEC protocol, and it is Pector-4 is extremely robust, extremely fast, as is Vera, which is also a proprietary protocol. The only one that's not proprietary that has any speed whatsoever is the government's or the ITU STANAG protocols, and those modems are up in the multi-$1,000s, and you don't want to get them. They're too wide band.
Okay. Okay. Any other before I do that, any other questions, comments, concerns, etc.? Perry, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Yeah. Mark is yelling out, Perry, come to the next meeting.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Steve, can you email the slide deck to either board@palomararc.org or
how about
just
to Chris?
Yeah, you can send it to Chris and he'll get it to us to.
I can email it as a PDF, but I can't email it otherwise.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Okay. So next month it's Skywarn, and the presenter will be here, right, Chris? So the presenter will be here in person. So come on down. We have donuts. And Mark is headed up here to talk about the June meeting. Hey, Mark, what's your step?
I'm looking at 10:45. Good night, gentlemen.
Oh, good night. Thank you for your presentation.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Okay, so I've decided that twice a year, we're going to forego the normal meeting and have a little party in here. And it's a radio nerd party. Bring all your gear with you. I'm bringing a bunch of test equipment, as is John and a couple others. And we can do everything from power testing, find out if you're on frequency, bring your antenna. We'll tell you what the SWR is across the bands. You know, just about anything that you can think of for fiddling with ham radio will be. So, and I want to make the whole thing interactive. People talking, standing around, you know, playing with stuff. I used to have a spare repeater and we'd set it up in the room so that people could play with the spare repeater. But that's now earning its living on Mount Palomar until I can get normal 146730 back up again. So I'm not sure whether, if I have the normal one, then the spare repeater will be in here. And we use high gain antennas, normally like a little paper clip or something, and just turn the power down to a 1/2 watt or whatever the minimum is. Because we don't need much range other than this room. But then you can see how to work repeaters. You can go in and you can change CTCSS tones and all sorts of nifty little things. So the whole idea, and we do it in June and then again for the Christmas party. And the whole idea is not to have an organized presentation. It's to come in and play with your ham gear. And since we're dealing with a spectrum analyzer and network analyzers and things, people like Kevin who are playing with his cell phone, we can look at the frequencies coming out of your phone also. What I should do is bring my waveform generator, and then we can also block all the cell phones. With that.
All right. Fantastic. So that's the upcoming meetings. Always exciting information. If you have anything you want to be included in the scope, please email scope@palomararc.org. Kevin, can I ask you to put some pictures together of the new radio room and send that little article to Scope? That'd be fantastic. So look for that in the coming newsletters. Your articles and photos of your shack can also make it to the newsletter, scope@palomararc.org. Questions, comments, concerns can be addressed to board@palomararc.org. If you didn't sign in yet, which I didn't, so don't run away. It's always the president who's last, right? Richard, yes. Fields, thank you. Field day. So we have a lot of people who say, hey, when is Palomar Amateur Radio Club going to do a field day again? The answer is, who's going to run it? So if you are interested in Park having a field day and you want to help organize it, please email the board. You can also email fieldday@palomararc.org, and that'll get you on a list where we can have ongoing discussions. We have hey, Mark, what do we have currently? Did we save back a tower and rotor and antenna? Okay. Mark's front yard has a bunch of our stuff. So, okay. So, and I know Richard has some stuff that he's built. So we will have ways to put metal up in the air. We'll have people have things to transmit on that metal and receive on that metal. We just need people to do the transmitting and receiving.
Is people willing to step up and coordinate?
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah. Yep. So it's the coordination, making sure that, so a good rule that I've heard is there has to be at least 5 form a new committee. So we need at least 5 people to run, to be in charge of coordinating and running the field day. And then you need to be able to get people to operate. I'm not saying you need 5 people to do the whole thing. You need 5 people in leadership to do the thing. So the last full weekend in June, it's always the last full weekend in June. Okay, Greg. How many board members do we have? And I don't want it to be the usual suspects. The board members do everything else. We can have other people do field day. Yeah, and yeah. Okay, so contact board@palomararc.org or fieldday@palomararc.org if you're interested in being involved in Field Day, either as a organizer or as an operator or both. Anything else? Fantastic. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Those here, drive safe on your way home. Those at home, walk safe to your next room. Yes. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. 7-3.